Okay, lately I've been doing a lot of classes in Hindi, and it's very interesting how your brain is kind of tuned in to do things in a very particular way. So I had to really hold myself back when I was leading the prayer and not end up praying in Hindi, and all of you would have been like, what's he talking about? We don't know what's he talking about. But now there was no reason to, just start with that. The reason why I said that was also because sometimes in our relationships, in our friendships, we get into a pattern and it just gets rote. It's just like, okay, this is how I do, this is how I treat people, this is how I handle my friends, this is how I relate to this friend or that friend. And perhaps sometimes it's helpful to just take a step backward and see how am I adding to this friendship and how am I making this to reach its highest potential. So, with that, I would actually like to read one of the secrets of friendship out of the 31 which Swamiji gave us. And this secret is secret number 25. And Swami Kriyananda ji says or writes, the secret of friendship is learning and growing through your association with others. Because there are so few words, let me repeat that again. The secret of friendship is learning and growing through your association with others. When I read this, and I read this over and over, what really struck out to me in this secret was or were the words learning and growing. How important it is for us when we are in a friendship, in a relationship, that we actually add to the relationship, but we also learn. And then I noticed when I read it over and over that Swamiji said, learn, not teach. Because often in my friendships, I have had this interesting position. If I could only teach this other friend, or if I could only just nail this point down to his head, that can't you see this is what I'm trying to say? But no, it's about learning and growing. And Nayaswami Anandi, for those of you who might know her, she lives at Ananda village, and she's given many, many inspiring satsangs, and you can find them on the Ananda Worldwide YouTube channel or on Facebook. But in one of her satsangs, she said that often when we are listening to a satsang and we hear some very inspiring point, or we hear something of a correction in an attitude which one can work upon, there is a tendency to think, oh, if only this point X person would have heard it, or if only my spouse would have heard this point and understood that this is what is their problem. And well, it's not about this other person, it's about what am I learning out of this? How am I growing out of this relationship, of this friendship? And also, once I heard Nayaswami Jyotish, who's the worldwide spiritual director of Ananda Worldwide, and he said once, which was very astounding to me, almost it shocked me when he shared this in a satsang. He said that he lives at Ananda village and there are about 100, people who live over there. And he said that at some point or the other in his life, while he's lived there, he's been inspired by each one individually by something or the other. Each single person, without exception, has inspired him. And I thought, huh, here is someone who has been at Ananda from the very beginning. In fact, if I were to correct myself, he's been a part of Ananda even before Ananda existed. He met Swamiji even before Swamiji formed Ananda, and he's been on the path for such a long time. And yet, he saw himself not as someone where he's teaching people, where he's giving something to people, but also at the same time of being inspired by them, learning from them, growing with them. And when we look at many of our friendships, oftentimes what happens is friendships become a means, an escape mechanism. Of course, we want to relax with our friends. Of course, we want to be able to open our hearts. But is it being opened in an uplifted way? Or is it just, oh, I'm bored, so I need someone to give me company? Or is it something where the friendship is one of helping one another? And this really, kind of made me think that, are all my friendships or whatever friendship I am living or a relationship which I'm through, is it the one of learning and growing? And growing is equally important because relationships, friendships need to be dynamic. It's not enough to say, hey, I'm your best friend, happy friendship day, here's my friendship band, or here's a message. And that's it. I don't have to really grow. I don't have to really do anything other than that. We can chit chat, we can gossip, but okay, fine. What else is there to it? It's not about passing time, it's about growing with one another and also giving the other person the space to grow. Sometimes I've had in my life, especially from the time I came to Ananda, and when I started connecting with my old friends, I found that, oh my God, we look at life in such a different way now. And how am I going to move with this forward? And during this time, a friend of mine just called me and I didn't have his number. He spoke to me in a very familiar way. And he was just, not in a very respectful way. And I told him, that let's not begin our conversation. We are speaking to each other after such a long time. Let's not begin the conversation at such a low point. Let's at least, treat each other with respect. And on the other hand, my friend was very unhappy. He said, oh my goodness, look at you, an idealist. Oh, suddenly you have grown so much and you speak about high ideals. And I said, well, what good is that friendship going to do to me and to him? So sometimes it might even be wise to take a step backward. It's not to say that we don't love the other friend, we don't respect the other friend, but at the same time, it's good to remember that what good it is going to do if we are to just continue in that pleasing relationship of, oh, okay, I'm growing, it doesn't please you. Okay, fine. I'll cut down. I'll not be too spiritual. I'll be okay. I'll mellow down. I don't meditate, or I'll meditate. No, I meditate. That's my life. I don't talk the way I used to talk to. That's my life. I'm trying to grow and become a better human being. That's my life. And sometimes it's important not to let the old relationships hold us down. If you can, the best thing is to lift them up. And if not, as in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that sometimes, not sometimes, many times this happens, that when a lower dharma conflicts with the higher dharma, the lower dharma ceases to exist. And so sometimes, if there is a conflict between a relationship with God and Guru and any other relationship, then I don't think there's much of a choice. Of course, we want to do our best to take them forward. But if we can't, it's good to move forward and pray for them because that would help them much more than arguing with them and trying to say or prove a point. With that, I would actually like to move on to the next couple of secrets, which is secret number 27 and 28. They're somewhat related, so I'll read them together. So Swamiji writes, the secret of friendship is loving God above all. And then he writes, the secret of friendship is seeing God's love behind the blessing of friendship. So, loving God above all and seeing God's love behind the blessing of friendship. And that to me has been in very many ways very significant in terms of many friendships I've built over my few years at Ananda. Because if I were to relate to this other person, let's say if I were to relate to, I can see Jamal on the screen. If I just see Jamal as Jamal, or if Jamal sees just Vineet as Vineet, well, Vineet has a lot of flaws in him. And some of those flaws are not very pretty. And there's not many good reasons to love Vineet for who he is. But if we were to love the other person or love God behind the other person, then the relationship becomes completely different. And then what happens is we try to bring the highest in the other person. We then don't try to hold them back, but then we try to see, yes, we all have faults. I have my own fair share of faults, but how do I try to bring the highest in the other person? Swami Kriyananda had many of his brother and sister disciples give many reasons to him to even, he had enough number of reasons. If he had to hate, he could have hated them. They betrayed him, they spoke ill about him, they tried to do everything to destroy him. But he said, oh, what good would it do to him? He loved them, he loved the God behind them, and he stuck and kept his loyalty towards them. And in fact, if you've read his book, The New Path, in describing those very same friends who attacked him, he wrote such high words of praise about their discipleship and their commitment to the spiritual path. And you might think, wait a second, here are people who tried his best to destroy him, and all he does is talk good things about him. And when someone asked him that, Swamiji, what's going on here? And Swamiji said, well, I have to be sincere. This is what they were. They were truly sincere people. They were good people. And this was my first impression of them. So I have to write what is true. So despite the fact that whatever mean thing the other party had done, he struck with his loyalty and he kept the love together. And there's just one last story which actually happened to me at Ananda. When you live at Ananda, when you have been in different places, and especially, life kind of shifts very quickly, or at least maybe it was my personal karma that I came to the path when I was in Chennai. Then after that, I moved to Pune. Then I moved to Khandala. Now we are in Panchkula. So it's just been a very exciting outward life. But then at the same time, you have situations where you make new friends, which is wonderful. But then you also part with old friends. And when I was going through one such transition, I was telling to a group of friends of mine, or actually to one friend of mine, I said, I'm going to miss you and miss you all. And this friend was a very, very deep soul, and he could see behind what I was saying, but he also saw why I was leaving or moving. And he said, I understand what you're saying. I can completely understand, but you came here to find God. And that was it. You came here to find God. And like we hear in the Bible, in which Paramahansa Yoganandaji and Swami Kriyanandaji often said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. So, if we seek the kingdom of God first, we will attract wonderful friends. We will attract friends who actually come from God. We'll attract soul friends. And how often it happens that suddenly, when we come to Ananda or we come to the spiritual path, or whichever our spiritual path is, and we find these old brothers and sisters and friends, it's like, hey, I know you. It's been just 10 minutes or 15 minutes since I'm seeing your face, but there seems to be something more in it. I know you on a much, much more deeper level. So let's strive for those kinds of friendship where we see love behind those friendships, where we are learning and growing with them. And most importantly, we are loyal to them in our heart despite whatever they do. So with that, I would like to pass on to Brahmachari Jamal.
Thank you, Vineet. So I'm going to start by reading one of these secrets. This is secret number 23. So the secret of friendship is supporting a friend in the truth, no less so if it means confessing your own error. So supporting a friend, well, a trend maybe, but a friend in the truth. And oftentimes, if we're the one who's made the mistake, that we just like to defend our own ego rather than defend and support the truth. I knew a couple that argued like it was World War II over whether the glasses in the cupboard should be upward or downward. And if you want to get into that, and please don't, there can be many good reasons for why it should be up or why it should be down. And this couple would not actually come to a conclusion about what was right. It was just one person lost their energy, and so the war was kind of on a low level for a while, but it could flare up at any given time again when it was time to decide who was going to put the dishes away and whether the cup should be up or down. And when I see this, when I think about this, I think, who wants to live like that? And I think truth. So what is the truth? Is it better for the glass to be up, or is it better for the glass to be down? And over many years of thinking about this, my opinion is, who cares? that it really doesn't matter whether the glass is up in the cupboard or whether it's down. What matters is, am I happy? And in whatever relationships that I have with other people, are they happy? And I can't force another person to say, okay, I see that the glass, let's say, should be up. Actually, I don't even really have an opinion on this. And the other person says that it should be down. Um, I I think that the highest thing is truth. And so, first of all, in this friendship, if we can both say, well, let's try to figure out what we think truth is. And now remember that Master said that wise men discuss, fools argue, and wise men discuss, meaning that two wise people can say, well, I think that, if you leave it up, the dust might get in. If you leave it down, the moisture might not completely evaporate, on and on. Now, if we can discuss these points without thinking, no, I'm sure of it, it's supposed to be this way, then when we do that, we're arguing and we're being fools. But if we can discuss, then perhaps we can come to an agreement on what truth is. But if we discuss deeply enough, we probably both can say, look, it really doesn't matter. It can go either way. That's not the important thing here. The important thing is your happiness. The important thing is my happiness. The important thing is that we both can control our emotions and just be friends. And now all of our friends, as Vineet was talking about his relationships with other friends, they might not be at a point where they want to know truth, where they want to base the relationship on truth. They might want to base life on their own firm opinions, which they're so sure are correct. And so I've found that it's best to just not really have a personality, not really have too many opinions with people like that. Let them be strong in their opinions and simply let it be. And that then in that relationship is my truth. And that seems to lead to a certain amount of happiness. And that seems to work. Of course, if there's principles that we need to stand up for, there's time for that. And it happens, but usually people like fighting, and they like standing up for I am right here, and they forget a higher principle of peace, harmony, cooperation, working together. Anyways, as we go through life, hopefully we can have some friendships where we are wise people and we're discussing instead of being fools and we're arguing, and that we can base our friendship on truth and the discovery together of what truth really is. So that was point one that I was going to read there from Swamiji, not necessarily actually point one for me. If you have the book, that was number 23. And then number 24, I'm super just fascinated by it. So the secret of friendship is reliability, being true to your word, your promises, your commitments. And yeah, we think, okay, I have a boss. So if that guy gives me an assignment, I should be reliable and get it done on time so that I look good in the boss's eyes. But we don't always think, if I tell my friend who I've been friends with for 15 years or whatever the case may be, that I will be there at 3 o'clock, that we don't think, well, he's my friend, it'll be okay. I'll show up at 3:20 or whatever and not call. And the last one that I'm going to talk about, and which Vineet was talking about, is seeing God in our friends. But if we can do that, see God in our friends, then we will want to be honorable and be reliable and be true in our word. And really, our friends are just reflections of our own self, and they're just sounding boards for who we are. Usually people don't like that when we talk about the friends are just reflections of our own self, because when we see negative qualities, we think, Well, no. That's not me. The fact we even saw it, the fact we're even thinking, well, that guy's no good because he always does X, because he always puts the glasses down. And I'm so smart because I always put the glasses up so that the moisture can evaporate. The fact that we are even thinking whatever that is means we still have that problem to work on in ourselves. If we don't have that problem to work on, we just love people. We see that, yeah, they are as they are, and they're all growing up, and we're all growing towards God, and each person has his own unique journey. So it is all a reflection, and we have to watch our thoughts, and especially if they are critical of others, because there's the saying, one finger pointing at you and it's three pointing back at me. Hopefully the thumb's pointing up there towards God. We have something going towards God in that, but one pointing at you saying, hey, you always do this. Well, probably we also always do that. We just don't like to look at it or think about it. Anyways, there's some people who can be late often, and talking about being reliable and true to our word, and some people who are on time. And I guess probably there's some balance to all of this, in that we can become so rigid that we're not maybe fun friends to be around. If we're saying, hey, we said we were going to be here at 3 and it's 3:01, where were you? And yet, on the other side, of course, it's coming back to respecting that other person and respecting God in them. And if we say we're going to be there, being there on that time. But I said at the beginning of this little topic that I was so fascinated because I enjoy seeing if my word, if it has power to it. That if I tell a few people that I will do XYZ at XY time or whatever, do I actually do it? And we live in such a Rajasic world that there can be a lot of people around us, they just say all kinds of stuff and they don't mean it. And everybody else just kind of acts like that. And so people start to think that that's just normal behavior. Of course, you tell this friend this and this friend this, and you don't do it. But in God's eyes and on the spiritual path, it takes courage sometimes to say, no, I won't be there. I'm sorry. I still love you, but I have to do this other thing. And so can we reschedule this or whatever? It takes courage to do that, but in the end, it's much better that our word becomes stronger, our friends respect us, and that life works. But I'm fascinated by this because any true yogi who's really advanced and his word has power, then he can start to use it and do things like, you are well. And his whole word is binding on the universe. And suddenly that person who's had some disease for the last 15 years is well, because his word has that kind of power behind it. And so we obviously want to become great yogis, but we have to practice in the little things. That if we say that we're going to eat carrots for dinner tonight, then we need to eat carrots for dinner tonight. Otherwise, we need to not say it, and that's fine too. I'm wondering, I guess I'll try to fit this story in. I'm wondering how much time I have. That once Swamiji wanted hot chocolate, people went around Italy looking for this hot chocolate for him. I mean, not all of Italy, but where they were living there. And for whatever reason, it was hard to find, but somebody finally found it. And they came back to Swami and they said, Swami, we have this hot chocolate for you. And then Swami said, oh, it's been hard to get. What did you do? And the person, whoever, or group, whatever, they said, well, now that you asked, Swami, we said that there was a pregnant lady who really needed it, really wanted it. And so that's how we got it. Because then I guess the shop owner felt so bad for the pregnant lady that they gave the hot chocolate. So Swami said that wasn't quite right. He said, however, had you actually found a pregnant lady and given her a little bit and then brought me some, that would have been all right. And so he was telling them that you can kind of play around with these things, but that we should try to be true to our word as possible. Ultimately, this gets to a point where we're trying to be as true as possible to our thoughts. I'm not that developed yet. I don't know about the rest of you, that my mind still goes here and there. But the starting ground, and we're here on this planet Earth in physical bodies where energy and everything else in our minds move a little bit more slowly, so that we can learn how to slow things down and that we can learn how to be men and women of our word. And as we learn to do that, it goes together with learning to get our mind together so that ultimately we can be true to ourselves and have our word be true on that level. I'm going to read the third thing in my last 2 minutes here. And so this is the secret of friendship is seeking transcendence in your relationships. Once someone asked Devarshiji and his wife at that time, of course, Nayaswami Maria, what's the secret to your loving relationship that's gone on so well? And I believe I'm telling this story correctly, that Maria said that we love God more than we love one another. And I might be misquoting that a little bit, but seeing God basically in each other is the way to make a relationship, a friendship really work. And so if both friends are trying to take the relationship that obviously is going to start off on a personal level because we both have egos, but we're trying to help the other person rise above that ego and rise into God consciousness, then the friendship is based on the highest thing that there can be, because this is the purpose of life, is for us to try to find God. And if we try to find God by saying, forget all of those people, like, no, I'm having zero friends, I'm just going to a cave and forget about it, that we won't get there. We have to at least help some people. I'm not contradicting what Vineet was saying earlier, that there are times that this friendship is just not really going to work anymore because I'm going this direction and you're going south and I need to go north towards God. And so love you in my heart, but not going to happen. But there have to be at least a few people out there that we feel are going in the right direction. And so we are giving our love, but we're giving that in an impersonal way, that it is God loving God. And those friendships are the highest, and those friendships will take us all the way to the very end, to Nirvikalpa Samadhi and to God bliss. So I wish all of you God bliss.